What if justice took decades to arrive, and when it finally did, it shattered everything we thought we knew? Today we're diving into 4 chilling cold cases that haunted families, communities, and investigators for generations. From mysterious drownings to brutal betrayals, these are not just crimes, they're puzzles frozen in time. Loyola Jordan was a beloved mother of 7, brutally murdered in her own home in 1998. For 23 years, her killer walked free until DNA evidence finally pointed to someone no one could have expected. A family torn apart by grief finally got answers, but at a heartbreaking cost. A young woman found drowned in a Texas motel pool in 1966, known only as the Pecos Jane Doe. No name, no family, just 2 cryptic words written on her foot. It would take more than half a century and a twist in genetic genealogy to finally reveal her identity and the chilling truth of who she might have been with that night. A serial killer who confessed on his own terms. Edward Surratt left behind a trail of bodies across 3 states, yet was convicted for only 1. Why did he keep confessing? And why did the justice system let most of his victims go unnamed for decades? 2 women. One snowy night in Colorado. Orange socks the only link. For nearly 4 decades, the murders of Bobby Joe Oberholzer and Annette Schnee remained a mystery until DNA pointed to a name no one saw coming. Cold cases don't stay cold forever, and tonight, we thaw the silence. Don't blink, don't breathe, because what you're about to hear changes everything. Case number 1, the cold case of Loyola Jordan. It was a case that haunted a community for over 2 decades. A woman beloved by her neighbors, a life cut tragically short, and a mystery that refused to fade with time. This is the story of Loyola Jordan, a name that still echoes through the quiet streets of Picayune, Mississippi. Loyola lived in a peaceful neighborhood in Pearl River County. To those around her, she was more than just a neighbor. She was a mother, a friend, a cornerstone of the community. Known for her kindness and warmth, Loyola had lived in that neighborhood all her life, raising 7 children who also called those same streets home. But on June 30th, 1998, that peace was shattered. Loyola Jordan was brutally attacked inside her home on Washington Street. She was stabbed multiple times and died from her injuries. What made the murder even more disturbing was that there were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no tampered locks. Those closest to her insisted she always kept her door locked, leading investigators to believe that Loyola had let her killer in willingly. What happened next would baffle police for nearly 23 years. Detectives theorized that Loyola may have awakened during an argument or confrontation, one that escalated into a deadly attack. The killer fled the scene, leaving behind only questions and shattered lives. But in 2020, a breakthrough emerged. Captain Rhonda Jones of the Picayune Police Department took the case back off the shelf. Determined to bring justice to Loyola's family, she partnered with the Oxygen Network's Cold Justice, a true crime series that helps law enforcement solve unsolved murders. The show provided the department with crucial resources, including access to a private DNA lab that could test samples far faster than state labs. Back in 1998, investigators had preserved Loyola's nightgown, painstakingly collecting nearly a dozen DNA samples from it. But due to budget limitations, those samples had never been fully analyzed, until now. The results were conclusive and shocking. In 2021, just a month before the 23rd anniversary of Loyola's murder, the DNA evidence pointed directly to someone close. Very close. Her own grandson, 47-year-old Sergio A. Williams, was arrested and charged with her murder. For Loyola's family, it was a heartbreaking revelation. But it also brought long-awaited answers. They could finally begin the process of healing, knowing the truth behind the loss of their beloved matriarch. Loyola had been planning to attend her granddaughter's nursing school pinning ceremony the very next day. A day that should have been filled with pride and joy turned into one of grief and horror. Investigators like Police Chief Freddie Drennan and Assistant Chief Jeremy Magri never gave up hope. The brutality of the crime had left a permanent mark on them, and solving it became a matter of deep personal and professional importance. Thanks to perseverance, teamwork, and the power of DNA, Loyola Jordan's story finally has an ending, and her voice, silenced for so long, has now been heard. Case number 2. The Pecos Jane Doe, a mystery decades in the making. On a hot summer day, July 5th, 1966, a man and a woman pulled into Roper's Motel, right off Highway 80 in Pecos, Texas. To anyone watching, they looked like an ordinary couple passing through, transient travelers looking for a night's rest. They checked in under the names Mr. and Mrs. Russell Batten. But what happened just hours later would spark a decades-long mystery and haunt a small town for generations. That very same day, a maid at the motel stumbled upon a horrifying scene. The woman from room 17 was found floating lifeless in the motel pool. In a panic, she ran to the cafe next door and returned with help. Together, they pulled the woman's body onto the poolside deck. Emergency services rushed in and did all they could, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead at Reeves County Memorial Hospital. As tragedy unfolded, the man who had checked in with her casually approached the motel front desk. Calmly, he asked for his ID back, saying he needed to show it to the police. But instead of helping investigators or accompanying his supposed wife to the hospital, he simply vanished, driving off in his car, never to be seen again. He left behind a lifeless woman, an empty motel room, and a name that meant nothing. Her identity, a mystery, her story, forgotten by time. All authorities had was a rough sketch of her appearance. A Mediterranean-looking woman with dark hair and a deep tan, and one peculiar clue, the words Joe and Lean scrawled on the bottom of her right foot. Despite national media attention, no family came forward. No friends recognized her. She was buried under a donated headstone that chillingly read, "Unknown girl, drowned." That was all she was known as for over 50 years. But this story doesn't end in silence. In 2019, the Pecos Police Department exhumed her remains, hoping modern DNA testing could finally reveal the truth. And in March 2021, using genetic genealogy, they got their breakthrough. A match was found through family tree DNA. 3 siblings in Texas linked to a missing girl from Salina, Kansas. Her name was Jolene "Jo" Hemme. Her sister Joyce remembered her well. Jolene was sweet, shy, and just 17 when she disappeared. She had a much older boyfriend, a man the family distrusted. On July 1st, 1966, Joy saw Jolene for the last time. 2 days later, she received a cryptic note. Joyce, "Well, I got lost. See you in a couple weeks. Maybe. Joe." But the family swears nobody ever called her Joe. Jolene couldn't swim. Her family believes there's no way she would have entered that pool willingly. And the man she was with? He disappeared without a trace, never claiming her body, never making a report, never even saying goodbye. Today her death certificate bears her real name, Jolene Hemme. But justice still hasn't been served. Authorities are still looking for the man who called himself Mr. Russell Batten, who may have answers to how Jolene ended up dead in that pool. Was it an accident, or was it something much darker? Case number 3, the haunting confessions of Edward Surratt. Confessions from criminals usually follow a certain pattern, pressured during interrogation, whispered on deathbeds, or revealed after years of guilt. But what happens when a confession appears without reason? No pressure, no prompting, just a cold-blooded killer offering up the truth in pieces over decades? That's exactly what happened with Edward Surratt, a convicted serial killer whose sporadic, unsettling confessions have left investigators frustrated and families heartbroken. Back in July 1978, the front page of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette screamed, "Coon links Surratt to 18 slayings." Despite the shocking headline, authorities couldn't legally tie him to those murders. The patterns matched, yes, the brutality, the methods, the routes. But hard evidence? It just wasn't there. Not until Surratt started talking. As a long-haul trucker traveling between Pennsylvania and Ohio, Surratt's movements eerily aligned with 27 unsolved murders. One of the first confirmed links was the killing of Luther Langford on June 1st, 1978, in South Carolina. Langford was beaten to death in his home. His wife barely survived. Days later, Surratt was spotted casually driving Langford's car. Inside it, investigators found a baseball bat smeared with his fingerprints. most likely the murder weapon. But that wasn't all. Police also uncovered belongings tied to another murdered couple, Joseph and his wife, found dead in their home in September 1977. As the layers peeled back, Surratt's name became associated with more and more crimes. Frank Ziegler, the Hydes, the Addams family, and a trio, Guy Mills, Laura Mills, and Joel Kruger, brutally shot in Breezewood. Still, Surratt remained a step ahead, dodging justice until one fateful night in July 1978. He broke into a family's home, tied up the parents, and assaulted their 15-year-old daughter. Drunk and overconfident, he passed out in the house. That mistake cost him his freedom. He was arrested, tried, and by September 1978, sentenced to 2 life terms plus 200 years. But even behind bars, Surratt couldn't or wouldn't stay silent. During sentencing, he casually confessed to another murder, John Kin's, in January 1978, but was never charged. Then, in 1979, he faced trial for the murder of Luther Langford and received 2 more life sentences. Despite this, most of the remaining cases went cold. There simply wasn't enough evidence. Years later, in 2007, Surratt once again dropped a chilling bombshell. He confessed to 6 more murders, including young couples like John and Renee, just teenagers when they were killed. He also admitted to the 1978 double homicide of David and Linda Hamilton. But what did he want in return? A transfer. Surratt demanded to be moved to a South Carolina prison in exchange for the burial sites of his victims. Authorities refused, and in June 2021, almost like clockwork, he confessed to even more murders. Names, dates, methods, all matching unsolved cases from the late 70s. The picture is now clearer. Surratt burglarized homes, often when families were present, and frequently used a shotgun or blunt force to kill. In some cases, he shot entire families. In others, he beat victims to death. His known spree between 1977 and 1978 left at least 12 confirmed dead. He is suspected in 10 more unsolved cases across 3 states. Yet, shockingly, he has only been convicted for 1 murder. Law enforcement claims he's already locked away, and extraditing him for further trials would be expensive. But to the families, those who never got justice, those who never found their loved ones' remains, this excuse rings hollow. A lifetime behind bars may be justice on paper, but for many, it's not enough. Because justice isn't just a prison cell, it's answers, it's closure, it's acknowledgement. And in Edward Surratt's case, far too many families are still left in the dark. Case number 4. The Cold Trails of Orange Socks. It was the winter of 1982 in the peaceful ski town of Breckenridge, Colorado, a place known for its snow-covered peaks, cozy cabins, and tight-knit community. But beneath that serene surface, a chilling mystery was unfolding. 2 women vanished. Their bodies were discovered 6 months apart, miles away from one another. Different scenes, different timelines. But one haunting detail tied them together. A single pair of orange socks. January 6, 1982. 29-year-old Bobby Jo Oberholzer kissed her husband Jeff goodbye and left their Alma home just after 7 a.m. Like many locals, she hitchhiked her way to work in Breckenridge, where she worked as a receptionist. That evening, at 6:20 p.m., she called Jeff and told him she was having a few drinks with friends. He offered to pick her up, but she declined. "I'll catch a ride home," she said. Jeff waited. He made dinner, then he fell asleep, only to wake at midnight and realize Bobby never returned. Panicked, he drove into town to search for her. Friends said she had left the bar hours ago, around 7:30 p.m. They assumed she'd found a ride police wouldn't take a missing persons report yet. Jeff had no choice but to go home and hope. But hope faded fast. The very next morning, a farmer 30 miles from Breckenridge found Bobby's driver's license on his property. Jeff, along with 2 friends, rushed to recover it. On the way, they saw something blue in the snow. It was Bobby's backpack. Nearby, they found a blood-stained glove and tissues. A search party was quickly formed, and within hours, 15 miles from where her bag was found, they discovered Bobby's lifeless body. She had been shot twice. Her keys were at the scene. And curiously, a single orange sock was lying in the snow. The same day. While investigators processed Bobby's crime scene, a new report came in. 21-year-old Annette Schnee was missing. A cocktail waitress from Frisco, Annette, like Bobby, often hitchhiked. She'd last been seen in Breckenridge earlier that same day. Jeff initially denied knowing Annette, but after seeing her face on TV, he recalled meeting her once, even giving her his business card while she hitchhiked. That detail would come back to haunt him. 6 months later, July 3rd, 1982, 13 miles from where Bobby's body had been found, the remains of Annette Schnee were discovered, and in a cruel twist of fate, she was wearing the matching orange sock. Police also found Jeff's business card in her wallet. To detectives, the connection seemed undeniable. Jeff Oberholzer suddenly became their prime suspect. They pieced together a disturbing theory. Annette, last seen at 4 p.m., may have hitchhiked home around 5 p.m. Police believe the suspect picked her up, drove 20 miles south, assaulted her, and shot her as she tried to escape, without realizing she had left behind one orange sock. Then, he returned to Breckenridge and picked up Bobby. He drove her to a scenic overlook where she too tried to run. The killer chased her and shot her twice. The theory was chilling, and Jeff's connection to both victims raised eyebrows. But there were problems. Jeff had taken and passed a polygraph. He insisted he was at home with a friend. That friend couldn't be located for 9 years. When he was finally found, their timelines didn't quite align. For years, police believed the blood on Bobby's glove and tissues was hers, until DNA testing in the 90s revealed it belonged to a man and it wasn't Jeff. With this and other alibi confirmations, Jeff Oberholzer was eventually cleared. Other suspects emerged, a violent cab driver named Thomas Edward Luther, who once attacked a hitchhiker and later bragged about the murders, and Tracy Petrocelli, a killer who stayed at the same hotel where Annette worked. But neither man's DNA matched. Then, in February 2021, nearly 40 years later, a breakthrough. Using genetic genealogy, investigators linked the DNA to a 70-year-old man named Alan Lee Phillips. He was arrested and charged with the murders of both Bobby Joe and Annette. Authorities also suspect he may be tied to other unsolved crimes across Colorado. Though the killer was finally unmasked, justice came too late for some. Bobby's father and brother both passed away before learning the truth. But for the families of Bobby Joe Oberholzer and Annette Schnee, and for a town haunted by silence for decades, the case of the orange socks finally has a name: Alan Lee Phillips. And justice, no matter how delayed, is now catching up. That concludes today's video. I truly hope this gave you valuable insight into some of the most overlooked cases throughout the years. If you found this helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications to stay updated. If you're not sure what to comment, just drop a 555. It lets me know you watched till the end. Thanks again for your time and support. There's more on the way, so stay tuned.